What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Negler here, joined by Andy Herman, ready to talk some football for the first time in the 2024 NFL season. Andy, how the hell are you, man?
I am doing fantastic. It's felt like a little bit now, like football season is getting back. This right here is the
Solidifies
official
it.
sign that football's. It's not tomorrow's Thursday night football game. It is
No,
Aaron
sir.
Nagler and myself talking Packers once again. It feels great to be back.
So good to be back. It was great to see you in Green Bay. Definitely got some time there on the sideline to chat it up and look at this new squad. And since we last jawed, which was a while ago, they have selected their initial 53-man roster and even made a few moves after that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start there with your impressions of the team in a 30,000-foot view, right? Like, I think a couple years ago, this was a team that wasn't very explosive, very athletic, but I'm telling you now, that seems to be the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think athleticism, speed, and certainly just, we talk about relative athletic scores in the offseason, whatever we want to call it. Goody certainly has a type on both sides of the ball that stands out. But there's another word that stands out even more to me, and it's versatility. And I think you look all throughout this roster and you want to talk about, I think, first of all, now with Jeff Hafley on the defensive side of the ball, this isn't going to be Joe Barry Fest where it's going to be the same 11 guys doing the same 11 things. And obviously that's a bit unfair, but you kind of get the overall general sense of the point there, where it was a lot of the same stuff kind of week in and week out, and the same players in the same spots. And now you have Jeff Hafley, who I think is going to be a lot more, molding of his players and his scheme and his game plan to what he has at his disposal and what the opposing offense is going to bring to the table. And I think now he has all of these different players at end and tackle and linebacker, corner, safety that can do all these different things and can match up in different ways. I think we're going to see Jeff Hafley use it that way. And we already know Matt is going to mix and match everything on offense, from trying to get the best five on the offensive line to, different running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in different situations for different play calls. And there's all different shapes, sizes, types, speeds of everything at every position on this roster. You need a QB spy. All right, well, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker can definitely do that. You need more of a run stuffing guy, a pass rusher, and then you have your overall guys at almost every positions as well. It's just a really fun, unique roster that gives you a little bit of everything that you're going to need through the course of the season.
I want to look up front on the lines for both sides of the ball, especially considering the numbers they kept there, right? Whether it was defensive end, I think most people were probably a little surprised that both Brenton Cox Jr. and Aaron Mosby make this squad. And then you flip it around. I got a lot of questions on Daily about, are you surprised they kept 10 offensive linemen? And it's funny because they've kept 10 the last couple of years, but I guess to people outside that still feels heavy. To me, that makes all the sense in the world, and it tracks with Brian Gudakunst and his traditionally considering those spots as premium positions. If you're talking about especially offensive tackle and edge rusher, well, that when we're leading up to the draft, I mean, we say it ad nauseum, right? Like those are, to the Packers' eyes and lots of people around the NFL, a premium position. So I don't think it should be surprising that when cutting the roster down and getting that initial 53 together, he erred on the side of wanting to keep those premium positions in-house.
Yeah, I think the big things is with both of those positions, but especially offensive line, is once you get past 53-man roster cut down day, if you don't have an offensive lineman or you don't have a pass rusher, good luck finding one in season.
Seriously,
I mean, you're not finding even at the trade deadline, guys aren't trading away their offensive linemen, because even if you're a rebuilding team or whatever, you're going to need those guys next year for whatever rebuild is taking place, whatever new quarterback you put at the helm.
You got to be able to operate. You got to be able to operate on
exactly.
offense.
So those guys do not come available. I know some people are thinking, well, like maybe Andre Dillard. I'm like, man, maybe Andre Dillard's not like the greatest offensive tackle in the NFL, but if you release him, he will get picked up somewhere else. And your odds of finding somebody the caliber of Andre Dillard, you come week 10, it's just impossible. So I think the question was, did they view Travis Glover as enough of a player to put basically a red shirt on this season and develop? I thought he was. I thought he showed that in preseason that, there's something there and you don't want to let that go. And everyone else is just basically survival through the course of a season where, again, you can't find those guys. And defensive end, I think you could probably make an argument where, listen, there's not going to be many snaps there. Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, LVN, and Egbare, those guys are going to eat every single defensive snap. But again, if they see upside in Mosby and Cox, which I think is a very easy easy thing to see with both of those guys. Again, you just can't find those guys. You keep them, you err on the side of caution, and you have now the ability to even be, or have more depth there than you maybe need, or to call those guys up and actually make them active on game day should you have an injury to one of those top 4 guys. So it makes all the sense in the world, especially with how premium those positions are.
And I think, I mean, you don't have to look much further than cornerback last year, where, you can sit here in August, late August, early September and think, oh, we've got plenty of depth. And then suddenly 2 weeks later, you are absolutely threadbare,
Yep.
So the injuries can strike very quickly and kind of deplete that supposed depth at a moment's notice. So I
Big time.
understand, again, wanting to keep those positions somewhat bulked up, if you will. I, was talking to Corey yesterday during Packer transplants,
Yep.
and his takeaway, which is always unique, as you and I are there every day in the minutia, like trying to find out like who's winning the one-on-ones and things like that. And Corey's sitting there going, in a very different way of following along
Yep.
online, whatever. But he pointed out something, and he said something to me even before we went on the air that I found interesting. He said, I love this new ruthless Brian Gudakunst. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I will admit that the way I had been viewing kind of the struggles at quarterback and at kicker through a lens of what I thought, how I thought Brian Gutekunst would operate. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to be patient. We're going to give them time. They're developing. Man, there's something to that, because I do think Gutekunst understands the moment, right? This is a pretty significant window that they're in here these next 2 years, I would say, before they have to really start making some tough decisions about who to pay, who's their core, etc. So I do think some of these decisions were based on, okay, I don't have time for this
Yeah.
nonsense. Like, I have to at least raise the floor of the quarterback room a little bit. We got to be able to operate on offense if something happens to Jordan in a year where every game is going to count. Is really going to matter as far as our potentially getting to the playoffs and making a run. And at kicker, I mean, it's not like the kid Carlson cost him a game last year, but it sure didn't help some of
Yeah.
his struggles, right? And I think to Brian's credit, like I said, I fully expected him to be a lot more patient, and he absolutely wasn't. And I was interested, given that, like I said, what Corey was talking about being ruthless. Do you see it that way, or how would you describe it?
I think you put it perfectly, that he's recognizing the moment and realizing I have to put this team in the best position to win right now and do everything that I can. I don't think it was by mistake that there were 3 kickers. They're the only team that had 3 kickers in camp through the entirety of their training camp. And even then, they were swapping out that 3rd guy pretty religiously through the course of camps to try to find someone that could maybe win that job. And when nobody did, they went out and went in an entirely different direction and found somebody that hopefully can. And then same thing at backup quarterback. I mean, to Corey's point, he flat out said it was a disappointing performance from the quarterbacks. And
I was so surprised he said that out loud.
Especially
I
with
couldn't
Clifford
believe it.
still in the room, right? Like still as a practice squad. But it's true. It was legitimate. It was not, I think, up to the standard and what they were hoping for. I will also say, in the most Brian Gutekunst Packers way possible, they go and replace those with a unproven quarterback who is in year 3 and a undrafted free agent kicker. So it's not like not that they had a ton of options at either, but it's not like they went and replaced them with proven commodities. These are still upside plays down the road with maybe a little bit better, more recency, or just have done better recently. But yes, I do think that he recognizes the fact that this is a team that is capable of winning right now. And he's not going to cut any corners or just be like, well, we got to give these guys time. And his admission of I probably need to be more patient with specialists at times, and pointing to J.K. Scott and everything. But I'm with him. I think he's doing the right thing. And I don't know that he's ever going to lose sleep at night if 4 years from now, Anders Carlson's a really good kicker in the league. He had to make this decision now based on what the information was. And you live with those decisions from time to time.
It's interesting you bring that up too, as far as what the expectations outside the building. I'm sure you got this. I got this a ton. Go sign Ryan Tannehill or whatever, trade for whatever retread quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And he goes and makes that type of move, but he still stays with true to himself as far as it's not a young guy. I mean, Willis has been in the league for a while now, but it's still a kind of raw quarterback prospect that you hand to Tom Clements and go, okay, coach him up.
What do you got?
It's still kind of in their window of operation as far as, the type of guy that, okay, I don't think anybody was expecting that trade, but it makes total Packers sense. As far as the type that they like.
Yeah, they could have. We know now they could have probably traded a 6th round pick for Taylor Heineke. He was traded to the Chargers
Right.
like a week later for a
That was
6th
another
round
one
pick.
I kept getting, right.
And then Malik Willis went for a 7th. So if they wanted that veteran QB that could have been the, normal sort of number 2, they could have gone in that direction. But instead, I think they went with the, maybe a slight upgrade at the quarterback position now with Willis, but maybe a better long-term play with all the developmental potential he has. And hopefully, like you said, Tom Clements can get him to that point.
It's fun to look at all the weapons on offense. We've talked about the lines, looking at the kind of plethora of options on offense. I loved Matt talking a little few weeks ago about vomiting when he hears the term number one wide receiver. And I'm with him. I've been saying this for a couple years now, as far as it's a good thing. Like, I don't understand how people frame it as they have to have this thing
Yeah.
or else they're going to come up short somehow. I love the multiple ways that they can kill you on offense. I will ask, do you think there's a chance that someone comes to the fore as far as, you know, obviously Christian Watson's healthy. Well, that's a good thing, right? Jaden Reed's coming off a year where he led the team in receptions, but we all know how talented Dontavian Wicks is, and there's certainly going to be opportunities there. Do you think there's a possibility that somebody, like, maybe not takes that job, so to speak, but ends up as, okay, this is the guy we flow through? Or do you think it's truly going to be like week to week, you never know?
I think the latter. I think you could have a stretch where, like, oh my goodness, like September was Christian Watson season, and he just went
Right.
off for 4 weeks
Right.
and went unbelievable. And then October might be Dontavian Wicks, and it might be somebody else in November. It could just be week to week. And I also think that you could see the opposite, where all of a sudden you get through like week 3, and you're like, man, so and so has like 4 catches for like 56 yards, and that might just be, it has nothing to do with that player. It might just be a victim of circumstance based on the play calls and who is hot. And then that next month they might be the ones that go off for, it might be a 4-catch 200-yard game the next day. Like it just could be, I think, a little bit of that play in and play out, week in and week out, month in and month out. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think the question that Matt said, the vomiting thing, I don't think was actually trying to get to like who's your number one wide receiver, but
Right.
the whole situation too, when he's asked about a number one, it almost like makes me cringe. And I'm happy almost at the vomit thing, because I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you want him to say? He's like, yep, Christian's going to be our number one.
Christian's our number one.
He's going to be the guy we constantly target every,
Right.
like, of course it's going to be like, yeah, we feel good about all these guys. And it really is. And I thought we saw it beautifully at the end of last year, where Bo Melton was the first guy with 100 yards. And then I think Wicks did it and Reed did it. And like all of a sudden you
and
saw.
And then it's so funny though, because you come off of that, right? And then they get to the playoffs and Dobbs is the guy.
Dobbs is the guy. Yep.
Like, you just don't know who's going to kill you.
And it's a beautiful thing. And I think, again, kind of what we opened with the versatility of the roster. I mean, man, you've got the deep threat in Christian Watson. You've got the gadgety guy who's also a little bit of a more complete wide receiver in Jaden Reed. Dontavian Wicks is your route runner extraordinaire. Romeo Dobbs is your possession and red zone guy. And Bo Melton can give you some of the speed of Watson, but also some of the gadgety stuff of Jaden Reed. Like Malik Heath can be more of that Allen Lazard goon, going to go block everyone, live in the middle of the field, possession wide receiver. They've got everything. And it extends to the seam tight end in Luke Musgrave, the overall tight end in Tucker Kraft, the blocking tight end in Ben Sims. The running backs have the versatility. It's just all of it. And Matt can literally go up and draw up the play and be like, well, here's what we need at each of these spots. And none of them are also like enough of a, it's like a tell where it's like, oh, this guy's in the game. This guy's in the game.
This
so
is what
they're going to do this.
Right.
So they all have enough, again, versatility to be like, they could do anything with these 5 guys on the field. And I don't know what's coming next. And I think that's going to give Matt just an endless amount of ability to draw up plays and really be successful with them.
Flipping it over on the defensive side, having been at training camp and watched this thing kind of unfold in the secondary, man, I am absolutely shocked at how the safety position has completely flipped on its head, as far as just not only like the ability is obviously there, the athleticism, it jumps off the field with some of these young guys, but just the play style. Like, we've heard Matt and Brian talk a lot about wanting to change their play style on defense. And I think, as much as we know that the defensive front is going to get after it, they're getting upfield, they're shooting these gaps, linebackers are going to do what they do. But to me, it comes down to the safety position. Feels like we've gone that moment in Wizard of Oz where Dorothy walks out of the house in black and white and steps into Oz and it's color. I mean, when you go from what they had last year to what is on display so far this season, it feels like a whole different world. I'm just really excited, but also wondering, like, how do you get all these guys on the field? I mean, we know Nixon's out there tweeting, I'm the slot. Well, guess what? I think Javon Bullard's going to be in the slot a few times a game. Like, I don't know how you get away from that and how you get Evan Williams on the field. It's exciting times at that position.
It is. A couple things I want to discuss there. So I think, first of all, I had a great conversation with Ben Fennell earlier this offseason where we talked a little bit about, and he kind of brought up of like, we're to the point in the NFL now, we're expecting one player to play in the slot on every down is just a near impossibility. I mean, you talk about the best of the best of the best, the Justin Jeffersons, the George Kittles, the Christian McCaffreys, the Tyreek Hills, the Devontae Adams, whatever your best player is at running back, wide receiver, and tight end, they're going to line up in the slot of all different shapes and sizes. And then you're also going to get guys like Trent Williams pulling at you in the run game. You're going to get George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk trying to block you. You're going to have to blitz off the edge. And unless you are Charles Woodson in his prime, or maybe Jalen Ramsey in his prime, there are few guys that can handle the full job description of playing that position down in and down out. And so if you now have the ability to be like, hey, on most downs, yeah, it's going to be Keyshawn Nixon. We feel like he's maybe our best overall slot corner. But in some instances, it's going to make sense to have a bigger, more physical slot guy in there. And that can be Javon Bullard. And maybe, just maybe, on a 3rd and 15 on an obvious passing down and you got to have it, you want to put Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine on the outside with Jair in the slot. I can totally understand that too. So I think this gives you, again, the versatility to play different things based on what the opponent is doing, the down and distance, everything like that. And the other thing too is that you mentioned the safety group. I think they have the argument, at least, that there is not a better improved position group in the entire NFL than what the Packers did at safety.
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't
agree more.
Yeah, exactly. We don't even need to say the names. We know the improvement there.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's night and day. It is totally night and day. And look, that's a boon to Brian as far as identifying an issue and needing to overhaul it. It's not the first time it's happened. Like, he's done this before, but just the speed in which this room has completely changed is shocking to me.
Zane Anderson, the only carryover of all, like Zane Anderson, the only safety that's still there from last year over to this year. Would not have guessed that.
Man, now you got me all upset again about Anthony Johnson Jr. getting cut, but I'm gonna get over it. I'm gonna get over it. We're on to Brazil and Philadelphia. Speaking of which, big game Friday night. Can you believe it? We're here. We are here on the precipice of a new NFL season. Packers took off earlier this morning. I take off tonight, heading to Brazil for this big matchup with the Eagles. Interesting to see the injury report this morning where, obviously it's estimation because they didn't practice, but Tucker Kraft added to the injury report with a back injury. Hate that was added right before he gets on a 10-hour flight. Hope they got him some kind of ability to stretch out there on the flight and get kind of relaxed, as it were. On the Eagles side, I mean, they're not banged up, obviously, but they're dealing with some stuff. They had Devin White added this offseason as a free agent acquisition. He's out with an ankle injury, and they desperately need to improve their linebacker play. So then they had, the corner Bradbury, who they added this offseason. He's out. He's on IR. So there are a couple, places there on the defense that they were hoping to be improved that hopefully the Packers can take advantage. But when you look at this matchup between the Eagles and the Packers, obviously a lot's been made about two new coordinators in Philadelphia. Got a brand new coordinator in Green Bay on the defensive side of the ball. What is your thinking as far as how the game opens? Are they aggressive? Is it kind of wait and see, kind of taking, jabs at first? How do you think they kind of open this game, both the Packers and the Eagles?
Yeah, you stole some of the words right out of my mouth of the coordinator changes. I'm very intrigued to see, especially from like the Packers. Yes, they're changing over their defensive coordinator, but with the Eagles on both sides of the ball and a lot of change on that offense and defense with new players coming in. I mean, they just traded for Jahan Dotson, a couple weeks ago. Right. I know it's not like he's going to be a primary wide receiver for them, but he's still going to probably play a role. Again, now Devin White's out of this game. Obviously, you've got Kelsey that retired in the offseason. Fletcher Cox Cox that retired in the offseason. There have been a lot of moving parts, and there's always this balance between, is it better to play them when they haven't maybe mastered their new offense and defense yet and early in the year, or is it harder because you don't have anything on tape to go off of and you're going to get a lot more unscouted looks? So I'm very intrigued to see, to your point, exactly how aggressive both of these sides are. I think from Green Bay, the Devin White thing is very, very interesting. I know they got Zach Bond over from the Saints as well. They're going to have to go. They've got Nakobe Dean, the Georgia kid from a couple of years ago that they drafted. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Was a late round draft pick this year. But we saw Green Bay when they felt like the Cowboys last year didn't have the linebackers to maybe hang. They went and attacked that group right away. And I would expect that Green Bay, with Devin White being out, is going to try to attack that linebacker group. And I'm going to guess that we're going to see them try to spread them wide. We might see some jet sweeps and reverses early to try to get those linebackers, trying to know if they're going to have to go sideline to sideline, followed up with some play action, some bootleg, and just try to put those linebackers in a little bit of mental jail of like, they're trying to know what's going to come next. And then once they're there, just run right at them with Josh Jacobs. And I think they're going to want to try out that new shiny toy on offense. So that's kind of what I'm expecting there. Matt's had a lot of success going against Vic Fangio style defenses. So I think that is hopefully something that carries over here. And then from the Eagles' point of view, I mean, my goodness, what more do you want from a weapon group with a quarterback who is a dual threat QB? Saquon Barkley can do everything. Dallas Goedert's an unbelievable tight end. And then, man, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jahan Dotson as your three wide receivers. That is as stacked of a weapon group as you are going to get. That's going to leave any defensive coordinator having sleepless nights, much less one calling his first game in the NFL. So I think they're going to be, anxious to get all those guys out there and be aggressive with those and see where's the weakness on Green Bay's defense, and then they're going to try to probably exploit it over and over again.
I just can't wait till this comes down to a last-second kick.
Oh goodness, why are you a glutton for punishment?
I just know it's in the ether.
I'm saying it now. I have unwavering faith. Doesn't matter. If he goes out and misses his first kick by 20 yards, doesn't matter. I have an unwavering faith in Braden Iverson. He's going to be the guy. So bring it on. Game winning.
I've ordered my 44 jersey. I am ready.
Can you imagine Green Bay down 2, game on the line? Braden Iverson's out for a 48-yard field goal.
That's exactly what I'm imagining. I can't wait.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so pumped.
What's your Brazil plan here? I know you're flying out, so you're not going to be able to tweet. We know that. So
no tweeting. I'll be live on Threads throughout my trip. So follow me on Threads if you're not already. But yes, no, I fly overnight, get in early Thursday morning. The Packers have a walkthrough type practice that they'll have some availability at in the afternoon. I'm attending that. And then there is a meetup with the Packers Brazil group. It's the biggest fan group in Brazil. That's on awesome. Thursday night. And then Friday is the game. I plan on sleeping long on Friday during the day because it's going to be a late night Friday night. And I'm back on overnight Saturday, back in time for Sunday, so I can check out the rest of the Week 1 action in the NFL.
Which is a really good slate of games. Like it
is. I was looking at it yesterday. I was like, damn, that's a good opener.
Yeah. They did a good job. They did a good job.
I cannot wait. Andy, this is great. I'm so happy to be back talking ball with you, man. Make sure you're following all of Andy's stuff at his YouTube channel. We'll have a link in the description of this video, online, on Twitter, where he can tweet throughout this weekend. So make sure you're following him there. Andy, thanks so much, man.
Always appreciate it, Aaron. Talk to you soon.